It's easy to get behind a new series, whether it's a TV or movie series, when it's visually appealing at first glance, also known as trailers, as well as having a lot of hype and support behind it. It's even easier when it's based off of a successful popular property, such as The Walking Dead, Resident Evil, Doctor Who, just to name a few. You soon ask yourself a question, especially if you've seen this type of shit play out all the time. How long until the series starts to decline, let alone turn into a complete utter shit show? It happens all the time, especially to long running shows like Doctor Who, The Simpsons, Family Guy, Walking Dead, for a variety of different reasons. Enter Castlevania. Castlevania is no different. The show starts off well enough with season 1, but as with many other series, Castlevania falls flat on its face, and in season 2 no less, in seemingly record time. This is mainly due to the inconsistencies with the plot, as well as the inconsistencies and hypocrisy with its characters, though more than others. So with that said, let's dive into this shit show of a season from the beginning, from the land long ago. Season 2 starts off with an unnecessary flashback with Lisa's home in Lupu being raided by the bishop and his men while Dracula is away, resulting in her being taken away and executed. There's no fucking point in rehashing this given the fact that in Season 1, Episode 1, we already get Lisa's backstory and execution without the pointless filler detail. And what's worse is that it took half of the fucking episode to explain this shit. Anywho, Dracula assembles his war council, made up of vampire overlords from across the world, and places human necromancers, also known as Devil Forge Masters, Hector and Isaac, in charge of the war on humanity. The Viking vampire Godbrand, that's kind of a rather stupid name, but hey, whatever, he objects, believing they should rely on vampires instead of humans for leadership. But Dracula tells him that Hector and Isaac's lack of bloodlust and their loyalty, despite Dracula's goal of killing all humans, makes them more trustworthy. In Dracula's study, both Hector and Isaac question Dracula's decision to trust his war to them. Dracula explains that their hatred for their own kind, by knowing how they act, how they scheme, and how they betray, thus understanding why they all must die, makes them more trustworthy. As Greshet rebuilds after the battle, Sypha and Trevor stay off the other speakers, while Alucard comes to terms with the decision to kill his own father. At the castle, Godbrand laments to Hector that their war is being fought with no strategy, apart from wild destruction. Hector implies that Dracula wants wild destruction, to Godbrand's disappointment. Aw. We then see Dracula teleporting the castle to a different location. Trevor and Sypha reunite with Alucard and ask how to locate Dracula's castle when it can move from place to place. Trevor recommends revisiting his old family estate, as the hold beneath the ruins contains plenty of information and tools for monster hunting. Now, this is where Alucard and Trevor start taking jabs at each other throughout the entire season. While at first it starts off as, okay, it's kind of funny, but then it quickly escalates into redundant irritation.
He shouldn't die. Yes, fuck you.
Meanwhile, at Dracula's castle, the War Council are bickering amongst themselves about the leadership under Hector and Isaac, as Dracula tries, but fails miserably, at getting them under control. Carmilla then arrives and causes further discord amongst the council by criticizing Dracula's approach and inquiring his reasons of having not seared Lisa into a vampire, which causes Dracula to send her to his study. At the principal's office, Dracula's study, Dracula and Carmilla discussed what happened in the war hall, which leads to nothing more than Dracula telling her to rejoin the others, as well as informing her that Hector and Isaac will be leading the war. While traveling to the Belmont estate, Trevor's party is attacked by Dracula's forces. The group manages to slay all the attackers, except for one, who escapes but badly injured. At the castle, Isaac reminisces on his past, having killed his previous abusive master in a moment that shaped his ideals. Godbrand enters and brings Isaac the injured demon, now dead, to extract information from it with his necromancy. Later on, at another assembly, the generals argue whether to continue their attack on Argesh, or move the siege towards Brela at Carmela's suggestion. They then briefly get on a topic of running water affecting vampires, seemingly out of nowhere. Granted, the conversation is not nearly as disgusting as the villagers talking about goat fucking in season 1, but it's just as redundant. Isaac informs everyone of his findings from the now dead demon that came back, believing Alucard is working with the Belmont. Carmela urges Dracula to keep watch on the Belmont estate, believing it may contain something that could destroy them. Later on, Carmela tries to convince Hector to create night creatures to send to the Belmont estate, while encouraging Dracula to select Brela as their next target. Hector reminisces on how Dracula found him in the east of Rhodes and recruited him to raise an army, though Hector asked for a humane call of humans rather than a cruel genocide, which Dracula agreed to, except for the fact that in episode 1, Dracula clearly stated this.
For we are about the business of wiping humanity from the earth. And they still stand with me.
What the hell was that?
Anyway, Trevor, Sypha, and Alucard reach the ruins of the Belmont estate and open a magically sealed door leading to a massive underground library. Here we start to see Alucard go more full-on asshole towards Trevor, such as but not limited to criticizing his ancestors, Trevor himself, as well as the Belmont estate. Sypha begins researching as Trevor discovers several monster hunting weapons, such as the Morningstar Whip, while Alucard is left rather uneasy by the various vampire remains preserved there. He tells Sypha that this place is like a museum, dedicated to the extermination of his kind, which is kinda hypocritical of him, based on the fact that he's half vampire and human, as well as being on a mission to kill his father, who so happens to be Dracula, the king of vampires. But hey, who's keeping track? Back at Dracula's castle, Godbrand expresses his dissatisfaction with the plan to exterminate the human race, believing they will be left hungry without human blood to consume, which Dracula rebukes him.
Little Godbrand, little vampire, little parasite, little boot weevil who delights in making noise and pretending he is important and dangerous. Are you going to continue questioning me? Are you going to fight me, little Godbrand? No. Then why are you still here, making your little noises? Get out before I slit you up the middle and bite out your heart.
Afterwards, Carmela tells Godbrand that Dracula must take the castle to Brela, revealing how she killed the vampire who served her after he became old and mad, deeming Dracula to be the same and unfit to lead them. Later on, Godbrand comes to agree with Carmela that Dracula is not fit to lead, and something must be done to change his plans after waking up from a nap and demanded blood and beer, only to be served pig's blood. Fucking pig's blood. At the Belmont Library, Trevor discovers a magical mirror which allows him to see things far away as he bonds with Sypha. Back at the castle, Carmela continues to recruit Hector, telling him her intent of unseating Dracula if the castle is moved to Brela. Hector eventually agrees to go along with her plan. So he does give a fuck.
What a twist!
In a flashback, Isaac recalls how Dracula saved his life and recruited him to create his army. Meanwhile, Godbrand and the other vampire generals grow tired of living without human blood, and set out on demonic horses to a nearby village, slaughtering the people there. Dracula speaks to Isaac about the war hall turning against him, and confesses he lied to Hector about his intent for a humane call of humanity. What? Dracula lying to someone about his plans in order to get his way?
What?
Later on, Godbrand privately approaches Isaac after his raid, and suggests that they should pursue the war without Dracula's involvement. Isaac then kills Godbrand for his treasonous intentions. The following morning, Isaac releases Godbrand's ashes from the castle rooftop while Carmilla commands her troops to assemble at Brayla. At the Belmont hold, Alucard and Sypha bond a little, until Alucard goes on a rant about Trevor, listing all of his faults.
He is unreliable, emotionally damaged, and apparently very distracting to you while you should be focused on the task at hand.
Oh, am I not working hard enough?
And he's a drunk, and he's self-destructive, and anybody trying to hold on to him may well simply be dragged down with him.
That is until Sypha puts him in his place with a remark of her own.
Perhaps you're just an angry teenager in an adult's body.
Meanwhile, Hector meets with Isaac outside the castle, and convinces him to agree to the attack on Brayla. Afterwards, Hector feeds this back to Carmilla, and informs her that his night creatures have nearly reached the Belmont estate. Isaac discusses Hector's request with Dracula, but asserts that there is no betrayal to be concerned about. Then we have a flashback where Dracula reminisces about a time he once savored killing humans, and like many things in this season, it does nothing to further the plot or the characters at hand whatsoever. It only serves as meaningless dialogue. Then, after his monologue, he admits that he is tired, and cares only for results instead of the details. Carmilla and Hector then approach Dracula about the attack on Brayla, and he approves it. Afterwards, Carmilla explains to Hector that he is now implicated in her impending betrayal of Dracula, and can't turn back on her plan now, much to Hector's shock. Despite the fact that he agreed and went along with her plan in the first place, but hey, who's keeping track, right? At the Belmont Library, Sypha discovers an unfinished locking spell that could be used to trap the castle in one place. The library starts to shake as Hector's night creatures arrive and attempt to break in. Trevor fights off the night creatures as Alucard uses the distance mirror to locate Dracula's castle, so Sypha can attempt to complete the locking spell. After Dracula moves the castle to Brayla, his vampire generals begin to lead troops across the bridge to attack the town. At Carmilla's request, Hector reanimates the bishop and makes him bless the river. Carmilla's troops then reveal themselves and bring down the bridge, dropping many of Dracula's soldiers to be destroyed by the now holy water, as his remaining forces retreat back to the castle. As Trevor continues fighting off the night creatures at the Belmont hold, Carmilla's soldiers cross the river on makeshift bridges to Dracula's castle. Carmilla then tells Hector that he's coming with her, to which Hector hesitates in shock, once again, as if he's experiencing some kind of cognitive dissonance about what he'd done, despite the fact that this is what he wanted all along, hence why he joined her in the first place. She then tells Hector that he betrayed Dracula, and that she's all he has left. She then orders him to follow her, to which he reluctantly obeys. As Sypha starts using the locking spell on Dracula's castle, Carmilla's forces break through the front doors and do battle with Dracula's remaining forces. Isaac retreats back to Dracula's study and informs him of the betrayal by vampire soldiers, but doesn't quite recognize their colors other than its black with white trim. Dracula recognizes it as Carmilla's army and tells Isaac that she made her move. Wait, what? What the fuck? You mean to fucking tell me that he knew of Carmilla's plan all along, and that he didn't do a goddamn fucking thing to stop her until now?
What the fuck?
Sypha finishes the spell just as Trevor defeats the last of the night creatures. Her struggle against the castle's mechanisms causes the castle to teleport within Brayla, landing in the river multiple times with most of the vampires of both factions killed by the holy water flooding into the castle. Sypha eventually succeeds, disabling the castle's mechanisms while relocating the castle above the Belmont Library. Emerging from the library, Trevor, Sypha, and Alucard storm the castle and defeat the remaining vampires in the main hall, as Vampire Killer plays as the battle music, which I personally thought was not only well placed, but cool to hear actual Castlevania music for a change. Dracula retreats to his study with Isaac, whom he sends through his magic mirror back to the desert to save him from sacrificing himself to defend Dracula from death. Afterwards, Alucard reaches the study and attacks Dracula, backed by Trevor and Sypha. The group manages to inflict some damage, but Dracula overpowers them and engages in hand-to-hand combat with Alucard, moving throughout the castle as they battle. Eventually, the two end up in Alucard's childhood room, where Dracula has a nervous breakdown upon realizing the reality of him trying to kill his own son. Alucard then stakes Dracula through the heart, while Trevor arrives to decapitate the vampire as Sypha burns the remains, leaving only his wedding ring intact. Afterwards, Alucard is upset about having killed his father, but Trevor and Sypha reassure him it was the right thing to do as they all walk out of the castle as morning dawns. Alucard then intends to make Dracula's now deserted castle his grave, but Trevor gifts him the Belmont Library, along with encouragement to protect both their ancestral homes while using their collective knowledge to help people. Meanwhile, Isaac murders a group of raiders and turns them into the first of his own personal army. Sypha convinces Trevor to stay with her and join her on new adventures battling monsters. In Brayla, Carmela decides to return to Styria, enslaving Hector for his skills to quickly rebuild her forces and take advantage of the power vacuum left by Dracula's demise. Hector refuses, which prompts Carmela into beating the ever-loving shit out of him until he complies. Trevor and Sypha bid farewell to Alucard and set off to find the speakers. Left alone in the castle, Alucard reflects on the loss of his family and is overcome by grief. And that's it for Season 2. Overall, I felt this season was generally a step down from Season 1. Season 2 had 8 episodes, that's double from Season 1, to tell its story in a meaningful way, but manages to make it boring and overall perplexed at times. Such as when Dracula announces intention to everyone in the war hall except for Carmela to wipe out all the humans, and Hector just standing there seemingly going along with this, until Carmela eventually comes around and questions him about it, to which Hector tells her that he wanted a call of humans instead. If Hector truly wanted a call of humans like he told Carmela, then why didn't he confront Dracula about this? Why didn't the show at least have us see Hector confront Dracula and get shut down, enforcing his stance with Carmela? Then there's Dracula telling Isaac about a time where he killed villagers because they disrespected him or something like that, when it doesn't further the plot whatsoever. Or the time the War Council talked about vampires and running water seemingly out of nowhere. Or when Hector went along with Carmela's plan to overthrow Dracula, only to be shocked and angry at her afterwards because of it. Or when Dracula apparently knew of Carmela's betrayal all along and didn't do jack shit about it until the very end when her forces were quite literally busting through his front gates. To which I pondered this question to myself: if he knew all along, why didn't he do anything about it earlier? The best character on this show is Carmela hands down, because she's smart, logical, and vicious in what she says and her approach to what she wants. She knows basically everyone else is a fucking moron and uses it to her advantage, such as easily convincing that idiot Hector to go along with her plan by telling Hector the truth about how Dracula lied to him about a call of humans, which was obvious throughout the season, and that Dracula doesn't give a flying fuck about him to begin with. Then later on at the end of the season, beats Hector into submission into going back to Styria with her to forge her army after he declines at first. And then enters the worst character on the show, is fucking Hector. Not only is he a blubbering, rambling moron under the guise of being intelligent, but he is morally the worst character on the show. Worse than the Bishop, Isaac, Carmela, and even Dracula himself. Fuck! With Dracula, you can at least sympathize with him and his anger towards humans after they killed his wife. But Hector? No, 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 no. This is Hector on the show. When he was a child, he was punished repeatedly for bringing in undead animals to his parents' home against their wishes. He then retaliates by locking his parents in the house and burning it to the ground.
Hector? Hector, unlock this door at once! Are you burning something out there?
What a twist!
When he became older, he then teams up with Dracula on an agreement that humans would be culled until Carmela tells him the truth that Dracula lied to him and wants all humans to die. So Hector joins Carmela.
What a twist!
After Dracula's defeat, Hector refuses to follow Carmela anymore, to which she beats his ass until he has a change of heart. In case you haven't figured it out yet, Hector can't be trusted. He's not loyal. He wasn't loyal to his parents as a child. He wasn't loyal to Isaac, Dracula, or Carmela. Well, not at first. But she has her ways. I kinda hope that the show improves in Season 3, and not be another boring shit show that Season 2 was. But I'm not holding my breath on it either. But we'll see. And that's it for this review. If you like this video, show some love by pressing the like button, and to show even more love, tap that subscribe booty so you don't miss further videos, and I'll see you next time.